Okay, if you can pay for the repairs.
Well, you got some deadly repair work.
Yeah, I've got some.
Hey, next time you want to buy a car or anything, let me know because I've got consumer
Well, no, it's just
the nonprofit consumer
yeah,
reports.
I've got a couple of repairs that are not covered by the warranty plan that I have to pay for in the next year.
Oh,
Anyway, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Figure it out. Right. Okay. Here we go. Welcome to Election Day, February 27th, 2025. So I was doing some research yesterday about this, and it seems as if no matter what, the election, because of the wording of the election law, the next election, if we have a majority election today, will be the first week in June in 2029. There you go.
yeah, it's going to be 4 years and 4 months that Doug is
Yeah.
going to be ruling over Ontario, and you can be certain of
It
that.
gets an extra 4 months.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So we're saddled with Doug for some time yet to come.
Well, if we believe
Because
the polls,
even though the election hasn't happened yet, it's very clear that he's going to win in a majority.
yeah, if we believe the polls, and I'm saying to every voter that's out there, don't believe the polls. Go make your own mind up. Decide what you're going to vote. Go out and vote. Right?
Certainly, don't go. You have a voice, use it.
Yeah.
Disregard the polls because it's your decision. You make the vote. You.
We should, in my view, we should not be allowed polls within 1 month of an election.
I don't think that's necessary anymore because people don't really believe polls as much, and polls aren't doing their jobs as well as they would have at
Used to
other
do,
times.
yeah, I know. But yeah, we only have to look at the American election for that, which was talking about a narrow win for Harris. Instead, we had a narrow win for Trump.
Yes, we won 1.6% of the popular vote.
Yeah,
but yeah, so they were wrong again, and that really frosted me because I figured by this time, having had it wrong in 2016 and 2020 so poorly, that they would have made the proper adjustments to make their polls more accurate, but they did not. And so you can't completely trust them. And of course, polls, as I've mentioned before, you will find, and I think it's probably happening in Canada as well, that the conservative voters don't cooperate as well with the polls, and they don't trust the press as much.
yeah. Okay, so at the moment, it looks like we're staring down a clean sweep for the Conservatives in Niagara. All right.
I still think
I said yesterday that I said to you yesterday that hey, watch out, that could be possible, right? You said you were firmly in the Gates camp, and I'm not so sure. I think it's going to be close, a lot closer than it was with Gale versus Gates.
well, we have a situation here where we have an incumbent that's very popular,
Yep.
but we have this very powerful
Yep.
blue wave.
Yeah.
Which could make the difference here in Niagara. I'm not saying that Ruth Ann won't win. I'm just saying it's more likely that the incumbent will edge her out. But at the very beginning, I thought he would win by more. But if you were to look at the polls, it would look as if there is a real challenge out there now.
There's another factor at play here. Apparently, the Muslim and Jewish voters have endorsed Nieuwesteeg because of something that Gates said in relation to Gaza. Now, in reality, Gaza has got nothing to do with provincial politics. So why he's opening his mouth in that regard, I don't know.
Well, because he's brought it up in the provincial house. The topic has been brought up in Provincial House. And also remember that it's not the whole community of Muslims and it's not the whole community of Jews that are backing the conservatives. Although I will tip my hat to Nieuwesteeg to get the endorsements she did from the Muslim community and part of the Muslim community and part of the Jewish community. However, the comments, we have an article here that says that Wayne Gates is in trouble for what he has said in Gaza, and this has supposedly offended the Muslim community and the Jewish community. And I listened to what he had to say, and there's nothing there that's that bad at all. There's nothing there that says that he has supported Hamas.
Well, the interesting thing is about this, and I'm always critical of anybody who produces an article who says that they are they're condemning Gates or condemning any individual if they don't actually repeat the words that were said. How can we draw an opinion on it?
Yeah, this says local Muslim and Jewish voters endorse Nieuwesteeg after Gates makes shocking Gaza comments. Well, nothing that Gates said was shocking. There's nothing at all. What he wanted to, what he has said is he's upset at Ontario government, the PCs in particular, not voicing more concern of the slaughter that happened in Gaza. He did not say that he endorsed Hamas at all.
I get that.
He said he endorsed a two-state solution, and this article says that he's kind of that the Muslims and the Jewish community here are looking for
an apology.
Yeah, but they're anyway. It says here for a long time Gates has been making these types of comments, but they don't. In this, you notice in this article, it did not reference Gates's comments at all. It did not quote Gates in the slightest. This is a
I know
very
that.
poor article.
That bothers me when an article doesn't produce the so-called offending words. Nobody's going to hold it against the writer, because they're quoting what supposedly have been said.
I can tell you for a fact that the comments that I heard from Gates would have been welcome in many of the in much of the Muslim community, particularly that of our own Palestinian community. Those comments would have been welcomed. The idea of a two-state solution and what this Imam Mahmoud have called on Wayne Gates as well as the underreturn to publicly apologize for what Hajis Fuzul says is misleading and divisive false statement. I listened to what Gates said, and I don't see anything divisive there at all. He is expressing his support for a two-state solution. He is expressing indignation over what has happened in Gaza. I don't see anything divisive about that at all. I think that I would have said the same thing. I'm not so sure I would have brought that up in an Ontario election.
No, I wouldn't have brought it up in an Ontario election at all. It has no place in an Ontario election.
But we don't know what he was responding to at the time either. Right. This article is just a piece of rubbish because it has not made the telephone call to Gates to clarify anything. It has not reported the comments that are supposed to be divisive. And when I did search out what he said, there's nothing in what he said that was divisive. It was a plea. It was a plea for a redress of what has been happening in Gaza and what has been happening between the Palestinians and Israelis for years. a two-state fair solution. Basically, he was criticizing the Ford government for not making that very clear. However, and because it was very topical at the time too, whether it was provincial, we saw pop up here in regional politics at the particular time. It is a very topical issue, and he's brought that up. And I don't think that you're going to find a lot of Jews and Muslims endorsing him. Remember, we had one of the best protests against the Gaza war was one organized by Jews, right in St. Catharines. And I'm sad I didn't.
Absolutely it was. Yeah, absolutely it was.
So to say that the Muslim and the Jewish community is behind him, or offended by this is not true. There isn't enough. You have a few people, and Ruth Ann Nieuwesteeg has a nice little video where she is being endorsed by a local imam. I think it's an imam anyway, a Jewish or a Muslim fellow standing beside a Jew, endorsing Ruth Ann Nieuwesteeg.
That was, I believe, if I'm correct, that was Veronica and Mike Balaf, along with Imam Mahood and Zaid Haji Fuzo, who's the community leader.
Yes, well, I'm not so sure that they speak for everybody.
Agreed.
And but I have to tip my cap to Nieuwesteeg for doing that, for making a video where you have Jews and Muslims in the same room with the same idea. That was good, but I will not denounce Gates for what he said, except for the fact that at this particular time, this is Ontario politics, and it's not the geopolitical element of it probably should have been left out. I would say that unless he was directly asked that question about that situation. Now, he brought it up to show his endorsement of the concerns of the Muslim community, and that is a big, huge concern of the Muslim community, what is happening in Gaza and the Israeli-Palestinian question. It's also a big issue, of course, for our Jewish leaders as well.
Yep.
Well, I would tip my hat to Nieuwesteeg to be able to get endorsement in those areas. But I would also like to point out that Orthodox Jews and Muslims are more likely to support conservative candidates anyway. This is something true. This is something that was
it's discovered. A conservative values thing, isn't it? And it's the same as the Christian, the traditional Christians will tend to support conservatives and conservatism.
Yes. And this was whatever you think of Dinesh D'Souza in the United States. He's a South Asian Indian guy of background, and he's pointed that out for years. He's trying to get the Republicans down in the States to put a hand out to the Muslim and the Latino communities, because they've been outside the regular voting process, and yet they share the same values, the very same conservative values. And I think probably the endorsement for Nieuwesteeg has much more to do with the conservative.
I believe so too. Traditionally conservative, traditional Jews and traditional Muslims would be way more conservative than, much more conservative, that's for sure. Okay, so what if you never received a letter to go vote? Yep, just take your driving license, your ID, and you can vote. Right? They'll have you on the list.
I didn't get my voter card till yesterday.
Yeah, I got mine.
I got mine yesterday, and then later that day I went to vote.
Yep.
But yeah, just take your ID. If you don't have ID, take bills.
Yeah.
Bills that you should have at least one picture ID. But if you don't have picture ID with your name on it, like your driver's license, say you don't have a driver's license,
And
take
and
bills. Take
yeah,
bills that have come to your house. Have
yeah,
some way of identifying yourself with
yeah,
your hydro bill or your gas bill or something of that kind.
exactly. Yeah, and the driver's license. If you don't have a driver's license, your the purple Ontario ID card will be good. And please note that whilst if you have one of the green health cards with your photo on it, that is not valid. People might accept it as showing who you are, but it is not valid ID because it doesn't show your address.
Yes, and also there's so many phony ones out there.
Yeah,
There was like at one time I think 700,000 people covered by OHIP that were actually Americans that came up here and were able to get OHIP cards because they weren't screened properly. It was but that goes back some time, so they might have cleaned a lot of that up.
yeah.
However,
Well, plus
yeah,
there's
you could
the
use
old
that as
one.
a picture. You could use that as a picture ID, but you have to have something with your address on it as well.
Exactly that. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's
And
going
that's
to
when they,
identify who you are in comparison to your picture. It's not a full ID.
yeah,
Yeah. All
some
right.
bill or something of that kind. Even if it has to be on your computer, if you get charged your bills on your computer, you can show them on your
Well,
phone.
you can print them out.
You could, I guess, but you
You
might not
know.
have a printer. But if you could show
Yeah.
them, if you
Oh
could
yeah.
show them a bill, even if it's an electronic bill with your name and address,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Um, Ontario burnt a record amount of natural gas in 2024.
This is another article I don't like because it's very, very misleading.
Biased, I thought.
The the reason why I don't like it basically is that of course we're going to burn more gas. Now, when we closed down the coal and oil burning generators, everybody thought we replaced them with wind and solar. We did not. We we replaced them with gas. And we did also put up wind and solar, but wind and solar at that time was very expensive, and it only added a small amount to the grid. So
Yeah.
when the coal burners went down and the oil burners went down, they were replaced by natural gas generators.
Yeah.
And this is a very misleading article. It seems as if to say that, look at this, we're using way too much natural gas. We're putting way too much carbon into the atmosphere. And this is because Doug Ford stopped the wind and solar. That's untrue as well. Number one, some of the nukes in Ontario are being refurbished. So of course they cannot generate as much power as they normally do. When that refurbishment has been completed, then the natural gas use will go down comparatively.
Exactly, and the Bruce nuclear reactor was taken offline in 2020, right? And that was one of the reactions. But he's also pointing out that we were at nuclear refurbishment, and the halt of renewables pushes carbon emissions in the air, and air pollution higher, is what their article was saying. And they're saying in 2018 he was elected, construction halted on renewable energy paths.
And do you remember why? Do you remember why?
Remind me.
Because the sweetheart deals they were giving to people who were erecting solar and wind.
Yeah.
You were paying
We were
Ontario
paying through the nose for it, yes.
Yeah, we're paying 3 to 5 times as much per kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
Because when the Liberals came in order to entice people to put up wind farms, they gave them a sweetheart deal, which guaranteed them a very high return.
I'd forgotten that temporarily. You're right. Absolutely. Yeah. That's exactly what happened there.
And that is nowhere in this article mentioned.
Yep.
Just that he shut them down, as if to think,
Well,
as if to say they.
You see, a lot of the problem here is that when it came to the Liberals and these wind farms, they chose the wrong option. They chose an option that was destructive to birds. They chose an option that puts ugly concrete towers into the sky, right? Had they chose an option which was less destructive, was closer to the ground, I don't think there would have been any change. And had it not been added to the cost of our fuel bill, right?
Yeah. So basically, what has happened is when Ford got in, he saw the incredible amount of money that was costing Ontarians for wind and solar. He later brought it back somewhat differently, and so they've committed to more renewables thereafter. But he canceled the one the Liberals had because it was costing the Ontario consumer too much money, and the Ontario government was very misleading prior to Ford. Oh, hang on. The Ontario government was anyway. I better take this call, so I'll have to come back.
All right.
I don't know what that's all about.
Yep. Okay. And basically, in response to questions, I don't know. Let's see whether Mike or anybody has said anything. I when I lived on the farm back home, we burnt oil. Yeah, that's true, Betty. Absolutely. Yeah, and a lot of people say they're ugly, and the worst about them is that we've got kind of tons of concrete standing up to get you know, to take wind where it's hardly ever even on. It's you drive past a wind farm, they're hardly ever moving. Most of them, either it's a still day, or most of them are actually not moving. There's actually better air currents at lower heights, and those get in the way of
emergency.
Right. So okay, so Mike says wind and solar were designed to fail with a poor system they had in place. We could come up with a smaller and better wind issues. Yeah, absolutely. Right. And yeah, and they're broken, not fixed. Yeah, exactly. That's, I think a lot of people have that feeling, Betty. We drive past the wind turbines, and they're not moving. They haven't moved for years.
Well, they do move. But there is issues. There is issues with the turbines. They have a mechanical problem that they didn't anticipate in a lot of them, and they break, and they're hard to fix.
Yeah.
Evidently, they've kind of fixed that, and they know how to make it better. But there is a flaw mechanically in some of the wind turbines we use, and they break down. Something to do with the gearing inside of it.
Yeah,
that can't sustain the
well,
pressure.
Gearing is important in these things because the wind turbines don't move all that fast. Not like they're not spinning like the kiddie windmill that's blowing on a windy day. They're going slowly, but they're supposed to be slow and consistent. So they have to wind up, get more, increase the energy that they produce, through a system of gears.
Yeah, of course. It has to be the power of the wind has to be then transferred into electrical generation, and that has to do with a series of gearing and complex gearing too, because the wind, of course, isn't always the same velocity.
True. So, yeah, and in fact, actually, what they want out of it is a consistent rotation at a particular speed, and I don't know what that is, but the point is that if that's a consistent rotation, you have, therefore, at the end of the day, you have this consistent rotation that is generating power, and you want it going at about 60 cycles, so it's matching the normal AC cycle plan.
Well, yeah, if it's going to be directly used, it has to conform to that. So no matter if the wind is going 25 knots or it's going 100 knots, if it's going 100 knots, obviously, if it was a direct generator, then you would get, then you would get higher frequencies. So everything has to be geared somehow to make the proper power. The other big problem with wind and solar is there's no storages. So at certain times you have power that you can't use.
Yeah.
And if you're not storing it, what are you going to do?
Yep. Okay. And Mike says smaller turbines more practical. Renting industrial roofs for solar and wind would be a better plan. Absolutely, Mike. I've been I've been supporter of that plan for like the last 50 years. Right. And we can do them on our own homes, right, as well. And there are solar panel companies that put them on the homes.
Well, you're not going to get a whole lot of power off of a small generator. I saw a small generator on the sailboats that I was on a sailboat, and there are small generators, and most of them carry photoelectric cells to recharge their batteries because you need power. If you're not running your engines, you still need power, electrical power to run a few things in your boat.
Yeah.
So they have solar panels and they have little wind generators, but the little wind generators don't produce a whole lot of power.
I know.
It really doesn't have enough capacity to fill up the batteries very frequently and well. So the technology is just not there for really small generators.
Not really small. We're talking about there are ones out there which are 15 foot high. Right, they are vertical. There are two types. There's horizontal fit and vertical things, and they work. It's just they are not. The solar industry has supported these giant eyesore monsters in the sky.
Well, this is a problem, of course, and it damages a whole lot of migratory birds and bats. So the big wind turbines are a bit of an environmental
they are
damage. But
which is smaller
all that aside, the fact that this article goes on to talk about how much natural gas we've used, and it makes it look as if the policies of the Ford government are responsible for that. No, not really. It's mostly due to the refurbishment of the nukes, and the Ford government has endorsed absolutely new nukes coming on, being built as well.
But they take time.
Yeah, they take quite a lot of time, and to fix a nuke, it takes a long time too. Remember, you're working in radioactive environments. Now, I didn't work in a nuke myself, but a lot of my coworkers had gone up to the nukes and worked in the nukes, and they have to suit up. Right. So they have to strip down, have a shower, go in, and they have a certain amount of time to do it. And there is a very, very intense procedure. When they tear something down and replace it, they may only have a half an hour time in there before they have to leave again. So in order to refurbish a nuke can be a very long and costly thing. But once they run it, they're big producers.
Yeah, because again, when you're in there, you have to actually do your job within a specific amount of time, leave, get washed down, and then maybe do it again. So you're only working for so much time per day.
Yeah. So this article is rather kind of misleading, and it's kind of an unfortunate thing that it is that it does not tell you that the coal and oil burners were basically replaced by first of all natural gas plants, and second of all, by renewables like wind and solar, which the government at the time paid a huge amount of money in order to encourage people to put them up. But the payback for that was 3 to 5 times as much as the power generated by nukes or natural gas. Natural gas is probably a very effective way of making power cheaply, and it only pollutes 2/3 as much as coal. So it was intended to reduce the amount of emissions, not eliminate them.
Yeah.
Until we got better sources of power that are cleaner. But basically, what they did is just kind of washed 1/3 of our emissions out. The other thing that it doesn't mention here is the collapse of much of Ontario's industry. Around about the time they were doing this, back around 2007 to 2010, and they finally closed the big coal burner in 2011 down in Nanticoke. The industry demand for power had gone down incredibly.
So when you're talking about the period from about 2014 to about 2017, you're talking about a slump in power demand from Ontario industry.
Yeah, it's actually predated that. And for a long time, Ontario industry started to leave in the early 2000s in a big way. It started to leave way back in the 80s in a big way, but there was a big tranche of it happen in the late 90s and early 2000s, and the demand for power was reduced. That was one of the reasons, and also not reported, that they were able to knock down the coal burners because they didn't need that power.
And the other thing to report on this, because there's a nice little graph in here. In 2024, we were just a little bit above our 2012 usage of natural gas.
Yes, and remember, natural gas and prior to that, the coal and oil were peak period generators. So the natural gas comes in a big time in the summertime when everybody's using their air conditioners. So you might get a gas turbine pretty much idling or producing very little power until times like peak power, when everybody comes home and starts plugging in or starts cooking dinner and all that. And also peak period times in the summer when everybody needs air conditioning. There's a huge demand for power. And going forward, there's going to be more and more demand for AI, as we keep hearing that AI is predicted that AI, just AI alone, will use 1% of all power generated in the entire world in a very short period of time.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. There's a new stage for Theatre Bacchus in Lincoln. They've got a 500-seater venue planned for the Niagara company. Basically, Theatre Bacchus has been doing a lot of they do a lot of work in other people. So they've been out visiting places. They've performed at the Shore Festival. They performed at the Niagara on the Lake, in Niagara on the Lake, and they performed at other festivals. But they also have a reputation of performing at wineries.
Well, mostly they do.
Yeah.
At 4680Q, I interviewed the Theatre Bacchus people. Or no, I think it was maybe with Marie Recruit that I did. That I in any case, one of the shows that I was asked to sit in on the normal when their regular interviewer was not available. I did. I interviewed the people from Theatre Bacchus. And at that particular time, it was COVID times, and they were trying to encourage people to listen and see their online stuff, that they made videos and stuff like that until afterwards. Now, Theatre Bacchus looks like very interesting. They perform theater for wineries, so they entertain the wineries.
Well, wineries have events, right? A lot of
Yeah.
events go on at wineries.
Yeah, and so if you have a chance to go see them, I would if you could, because they're very, very, very dedicated to the arts, and it's
I
something
saw them,
that.
I believe, at a winery event a few years ago.
What were they performing then?
I don't remember. I do not remember. There was a winery event and that I attended. I just do not remember. I think it was them, but I could be wrong. There was a play going on, but there was and it's one of these sort of things where they were performing, but there was also like networking going on.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
No, and it's a 5-year-old company. So when I interviewed them, they were pretty early in their career there, and so it says here they mainly perform in wineries and become incorporated, but they're trying to raise funds for a theater in Lincoln, a cultural hub. Now this is something different for down here because we are not really such an art focused community here. Aside from the Shaw Festival, which is very sophisticated, otherwise we are not really that art focused. You don't
We
see
should
theater
be.
groups. You don't see a whole lot of theater groups. We do have the Niagara Symphony and a few other things that are encouraging.
I think we should focus more on the arts than we do, because they actually bring local people out.
Yeah, and it expands your horizons a bit. It does. The performing arts do. I was on Friday. Last Friday. I was at Cirque du Soleil, which is magnificent. It's a circus with a theme. It's athletics combined with entertainment, like a theater, basically.
Yeah.
Athletics combined with theater. Now, this is supposed to be the artistic director, Lana Borsellino, said the aim is to create a cultural hub in Niagara's wine country to complement what the Shaw Festival does in Niagara on the Lake. We would love to fill that gap. I have a feeling, I hope that this is a little bit more affordable than the Shaw is. I would like to see theater groups where you can go in and the average person can go in and throw them $20 and get and enjoy theater.
Yeah.
But when you start charging $200-300 a seat, I don't know.
Yeah, we've lost so many theatre productions locally anyway over the years. For example, I'm not sure that. Do you remember the Firehouse Theatre Group up in the tourist district?
Well, you mean the one on Kitchener Street there?
Yeah, I think that's closed down, hasn't it?
Has it?
I think it has. I've not heard much from them recently, and that used to be one of those kind of, one of those places that you could go for without spending a fortune.
Yeah. I'll look it up. Fire Hall Theater, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's not actually on Kitchener, but it's just, yeah. Yeah, I've got a feeling that they're no longer with us.
It shows it's still here.
Oh, okay.
On Walnut Street, which is right at the corner.
Yeah, Walnut's the right address. Yeah. That would be correct because it's on the corner of Walnut and the other street. But it's
the 2024-25 season. Woman in Black was their production, so looks like it's still going.
And Laurie just basically chimed in, said that Thorold had issues. Okay. It's just there was a time when we heard from Fire Hall Theatre all the time, and we don't anymore.
Yeah, that's something I used to go there once in a while, and it's something that's off my radar now.
Yeah,
and that's, as a matter of fact, actually, when I was talking to a couple of years ago, I was talking to somebody from the Fire Hall Theater when I think it was 2022 when I was getting my award for community service. They were there, and a couple of representatives were there, and they tried to talk me into coming in and acting because they have trouble getting male.
You act? Yeah, I can see that actually. I can see that.
Oh well, I've been in plays. I even wrote one when I was 14. I co-wrote one.
You did? Okay, good for you.
And then performed it.
Okay.
Was an actor in it.
Okay. Well, there you go. I would hope you'd know your own lines.
All I know is in my school auditorium when we performed the was it the Scrooge play, Christmas Carol, I would have got I would have got a best supporting actor for being the ghost of Christmas Present for sure. If there had been somebody in Hollywood there.
Well, yeah. Okay. I tried out when I was 16, 17.
You seem to be disbelieving me there.
Well, I tried out to do a school play when I was 16, 17, and I got picked for a fairly leading part because I liked the teacher who was running it, liked my enunciation, liked my stage presence. Trouble was, as we got closer to the actual date, I had stage fright, massive stage fright. And I have to say I have had stage fright for many, many years until Paul asked me to come on the Your City, Your Voice election program. Like, what am I going to be doing here? But it was interesting.
Well, you're also not looking at a whole lot of people when you're doing video.
Yeah, that's true. You know,
I think I'm on for the bingo caller this weekend. Oh man. I mean, really, I don't know why I haven't got an Emmy so far, but
well, people like your bingo calling, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, because it's fun.
You know? Yeah. Okay. Some female physicians are eyeing a move to Canada from the USA because they're not liking what they're hearing with Trump.
Yes. Why? Yeah, some of them are very, very concerned because in this particular article, like a lot of doctors are trying to move north or looking at moving north into Canada because we have such a need for them, and they're getting a bit spooked down there. But it's not just the fact that I will say this right from the start. One of the things that are causing doctor shortages in the United States is different from up here.
Yeah.
Doctor shortages in the United States are happening a lot to do with the insane amount of insurance they have to carry for malpractice.
Yeah.
I think it's $20,000 minimum that it was pointed out here that a doctor has to pay to insure themselves. When I've talked to my friends down in Florida, they're really kind of in an upscale area, but their hospital is a rated D. It has a pretty low rating, a D rating. And it's hard to find other hospitals that they're not going to kill you with bills that are rated any higher. And it's hard to get. They find it's hard to get a local doctor just like we do, but for different reasons, and that is because of the cost of insurance and the willingness, this overwhelming willingness of patients to litigate their doctors. So that's pushing a lot of doctors out of areas. It's put them into clinics or other places. So they have a different problem. And of course, right now, a lot of women feel that just by being women, they're targeted in the DEI sort of backlash that's going on. Some of them say that just by being a woman categorizes them in the DEI situation. Others in this particular article has said that one woman could face up to 99-year sentence in Texas if they
prescribing an abortion drug.
Yeah. So there's a really whole lot of scary things going on. If a woman in Texas wanted a sort of the morning after pill, and you sent it to her from Massachusetts or some other state, then to Texas, let's say, and then you travel to Texas, they could arrest you.
Yeah.
If there was an abortion clinic, if somebody came to your abortion clinic outside the state of Texas or other places, you can be charged as well. It's a real mess down there right now.
Yeah.
And it's scaring a lot of people off. And it's not just gynecologists. It's also there's an osteoporosis type osteopathologist or something. I can't pronounce it, but also has complained, and they are looking to Canada right now. It's not a wave, but what is a wave of inquiry?
Yeah,
not so many doctors are moving there, but are inquiring about it because we have
one of the northeastern states, and she's looking at a move to Quebec.
Yeah, some are trying to get into Nova Scotia. So we have we have a shortage of doctors, and the doctors are being shaken up down there, and I would say primarily because of the high insurance rates, and to add to that, the confusion state to state, what is legal and what isn't legal.
Yeah,
is now making them interested in coming up here.
Yeah,
and of course,
the illegal the abortions is the first thing that was almost under attack from Trump anyway.
Yeah, anything to do, even like it's getting to the point where even birth control has kind of come under the eyes. If you take birth control or put an IUD in there.
And here we're not making an argument on either side of that particular question, right? We're just basically saying it's one of the key questions for doctors as to why they might move out of the United States.
Yeah, and the College of Physicians up here in Canada will not put conditions on them. Whereas, let's say if a doctor comes from Ceylon, let's say, or Sri Lanka, a doctor comes from Sri Lanka, comes here, they're going to have to do a test. They're going to have to show their abilities. But if someone comes from the States, because they are so much in line with our existing medical education, and they speak the same language, English, basically, then there is no impediment to them. They could just hit the ground running.
Yep, exactly. And they can take benefit of certain things like the 100,000 recruitment fee that we've got here in Niagara Falls. They can take the benefit of that.
Yes. So well, here it says here, Texas, meanwhile, has introduced a 99-year prison sentence for doctors who perform illegal abortions. And because abortions are illegal, then any abortion is an illegal abortion.
Yeah.
Even one that saves a mother's life.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. And that's an interesting factor. And it's not just about abortion. This isn't just about abortion. It's, although family doctors are, those that are concerned with abortion are probably top of the list.
Yeah. And here's the quote here. It says, we've got 51% of the population, which is women, classed as DEI, diversity, equality, and inclusion, of course.
And that's horrible.
We're suddenly a special minority. That's crazy. That's horrible. That's her opinion anyway. That's what she feels.
Well, that is crazy. It is crazy and it's horrible. I agree with her. It's dumb. Basically you're making women a special minority. Yeah. I thought we were past that these days.
There's another concern they have, that it looks as if the Trump government is going to withhold funding for science and health funding, which is another concern of them. And especially the United States being such a leading researcher in all things health, then that's troubling. And of course, a lot of that research comes from the public purse, and they're trying to reduce the public purse. So there's a lot, and in Canada, where there's an estimated 6.5 million people who don't have a family doctor, and where specialists are in heavy demand, well, I would say that we could use their doctors. Definitely,
we could certainly use.
Come here. We love you.
And that's what I say. They'd also be able to apply for things like the $100,000 that Niagara is putting up, Bunty, to try and bring doctors to Niagara.
Indeed.
Right.
And so there is a big uptick in inquiries. There isn't a whole lot of doctors going there. A lot of doctors.
Well, inquiries may take years anyway. It may take 1 or 2 years, because you don't make a big move like that other than you start the inquiry stage first, you make the move later.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. And moving on, Zelensky's coming to the White House because he's signing a long sought mineral deal between the two countries. And basically, Trump made the announcement at the start of a cabinet meeting in his the first cabinet meeting in his second term, his first cabinet meeting that he had in the second term, hailing the deal as a big agreement. Not heard anything in relation to a peace deal, though.
Well, basically, Ukraine needs security assurances.
Yep.
And in the first deal that they proposed, it would eviscerate Ukrainians' mineral resources and leave Ukrainians poor without a firm security agreement. The only thing I agree with Trump is that this war should never have started.
Yeah,
it was a foolish thing. And once the war started, if you're not going to put boots on the ground, you're not going to win the war, because you have 150 million man country fighting a 40 million man country, basically, and the populations are that diverse. So sooner or later, you're going to win by attrition, even if you have the same equal arms or whatever. So right now, Zelensky knows he's in a really bad situation. Nobody's going to send him troops. They're going to send him money. They're going to send him bombs, but he's running out of people.
Yeah, exactly. And both Russia and Ukraine have had youngsters leave. People who are 16, 17, 18 have been leaving the country in droves.
Yeah, we have here about nearly 300,000 Ukrainians right here. And they were probably both from the Russian and Ukrainian, even from the Russian minority in the eastern part of the country. They probably ran here as well.
Yep.
And the Russians, of course, in the early part of the war, they had 700,000 leave within the first months of the war, worried about getting drafted.
Yep.
And they poured into places like Finland, Latvia, Estonia, and other places.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So that when this war ends, it's better for all. However, how it ends is very important.
Yeah, I think I hope that Zelensky gets the right security guarantees he needs out of the US when coming here. I hope he just doesn't sign blindly the first deal that's on the table. And I hope that Trump recognizes the fact that we need to put an end to this war in Ukraine.
Well, he's saying we need to get the money back that we gave you. So that's why we want this deal on rare earth minerals.
Yeah.
But on Zelensky's side, he needs security. He needs security guarantees. He's seen that he's lost the war. It's not possible to continue that war because he's running out of people.
Yep, he knows that.
They can dump all kinds of money and weapons into Ukraine unless they're going to give them a nuclear bomb. That, you know, and look at this. This is a lesson for everyone else. Ukraine signed a deal to give up its nuclear weapons back in the 90s, and it was guaranteed by the US and the Russians for their guaranteed against aggression if they gave up their nuclear weapons, which they did do. They gave up their nuclear weapons, and then that made them vulnerable to attack, which was not supposed to happen, but it did happen. So this treaty that everybody signed and guaranteed Ukrainian sovereignty and protection was just a lie, because Russia ended up invading, and the other countries that guaranteed the Ukraine support in something like this just did not step up.
Away. Yeah, didn't step up. Yeah. And, you know, we need the peace. We need peace. We need peace, but I'm afraid for Ukraine right now.
Well, it's the kind of deal they have to sign, unfortunately. Yeah. They're almost selling their soul for this.
I know.
And however, it might end up pretty good in the long run there, because this will invite a lot of investment into the Ukraine and may stimulate their economy. If big American companies start going in there and mining for lithium and cobalt and uranium and all those other things that are present in large amounts in the Ukraine, this could stimulate the economy. But they're almost like paying reparations for a war that they were supported with by the United States, and suddenly the United States say, "Hey, we want our money back."
Yeah.
This doesn't look good. It's not a good look. But Zelensky's between a rock and a hard place, and like where is he going to go?
Yeah, very difficult, and he may lose. You know, and from what I've been reading, the potential peace deal could lose Ukraine as much as 10% of the current land they hold.
Remember, Trump aligned with Xi Jinping and Putin at the UN, which was shocking to everyone.
Yeah. All right. And I think we can kind of call it quits at that point.
Yes, indeed.
I'm not feeling good. I've still got to go to work, survive a day at work, but I'm probably going to take a nap between now and then.
Okay. Well, put on a mask so you don't give it to anyone else.
I hate masks, but yes, I get your point. Yeah.
I hate them too, but I wear them if I have to.
Yeah.
All right. Without further ado, I bid you adieu.